Hello and welcome to Coffee and Conversation with BTCN. I'm your host, Shashank Bengali, and we're here with Irakli Beridze. He's head of the UNICRI Centre for AI. Thank you very much for joining us. Can you just tell us a little bit about your role and what UNICRI does?
UNICRI is a UN agency which is mandated to assist UN member states and advise UN member states on the issues of crime prevention, criminal justice, rule of law, human rights, and other issues related to crime prevention. The Center for AI and Robotics, which is actually based in The Hague in the Netherlands, was created in 2017. And the main aim of the center is to understand the technology, to understand AI, how this could be used by criminals, what are the main threats, what are the main opportunities, and also to see how we can advise the UN member states and especially the law enforcement agencies to use this technology to counter the threat created by advancements of AI and machine learning and other related tech.
So can we talk a bit about the risks? Are there any risks that come up when it comes to AI and robotics, given that there is naturally a human element involved in programming and software? What are the risks you see in making AI and robotics a bigger part of law enforcement?
There are three ways or three sort of major lines how this could be used. One is that digital crimes, right? Any cyber crimes which we have right now, based on the AI tools, will multiply the effect of its dangers, right? So all the applications which would be based on artificial intelligence would have self-learning component to it, will not get tired, and will find all possible loopholes within the systems. So it will be much more powerful than human hackers. Only way to counter it is to understand how it's done and to use the AI technology against that. Second level or second layer of use is the physical crimes, right? Here we're talking about ground robots or we're talking about drones based on the autonomous technologies which could really disrupt the safety and security of our being. For example, the crowded places, major events, or other places where we could have the autonomous drones. And the third layer would be political crimes. On political crimes, we're talking about all sorts of fake news, but even more sophisticated than the written fake news or a digital fake news. We're talking about manipulated videos. So already we've seen many examples. Recent one was with Mark Zuckerberg or Barack Obama or others. These technologies will become more and more sophisticated with enormous potential to disrupt our life, whether it's elections or whether it's manipulating financial markets, stock markets, or doing impersonation of people and doing physical harm to others.
It's an evolving technology and we're figuring out how to use it. The growth potential is enormous. Are there legal red lines in terms of how law enforcement could use these technologies in the future?
And some of these notions are fairness, accountability, transparency, and explainability. It is really important that communities, me, you, and others, trust this technology while it is being used, right? The only way for us to trust the technology is if we understand this, if we know who is accountable, if we know how fair it is, and if we know how transparently it is applied to. And if we are not mindful of that, we will really run into problems. So the red lines are lying there of not being mindful of this. We also need to understand the human rights issues associated to that, rights of privacy and other human rights which are enshrined in international law. And I could paraphrase the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, who recently mentioned that this technology has a huge potential for law enforcement, but at the same time, we need to be really mindful while we're using it because it has huge potential of being misused.
You mentioned human rights. I also wanted to ask you about human development. The Sustainable Development Goals, of course, the UN is trying to promote in terms of giving people proper sanitation, proper hygiene, healthcare, improving statistics on maternal mortality and things like that. Are there applications that you see in the future for AI and robotics to help advance the Sustainable Development Goals?
This is something what we call Agenda 2030, where we're going to transform our world for a better place. These are very ambitious goals, and obviously all countries and everybody needs to contribute towards that. Now, what United Nations has developed is something called AI for Good Summits, which we started to run starting from 2017, which brings together more than 30 UN agencies, and all of them within their mandate are trying to identify how AI can be used to implement and fulfill one or more UN Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. And we've seen many different use cases and many different useful examples how this could be done, starting from the zero hunger or health and well-being or climate issues or SDG 16, which is the strong peaceful institutions, which we are contributing to from our center as well with different applications. So we've seen many examples, and AI is one of the very strong components which can actually help us to achieve these goals.
Given that AI and robotics at the moment, like a lot of technologies being developed by private companies, we all know about the growth of companies like Facebook, for example, as a social media giant. What can the UN do to rein in or to ensure that companies developing these technologies don't go beyond what's legally right, what's morally right?
Some of the problems which we are solving with this technology, or which humans are solving with this technology, are problems which we thought that they were possible to be solved. So it has a very good side to it. At the same time, it has a potential for misusing it, and this misusing could be associated with many different applications, like criminals using it, or development of extreme surveillance where people would not feel comfortable, at the same time infringements of the human rights and rights of privacy and other things. United Nations is serving as a role of a facilitator of many discussions related to that. Private sector or governments are exercising different solutions to solve UN Sustainable Development Goals. What we're doing from our center side is that we're facilitating discussions how law enforcement can use artificial intelligence, how effectively it can use it, but at the same time, how it can be mindful of ethical issues, but more so issues related to the human rights. Therefore, we're facilitating this discussion, and this summit, for example, where we are now, this Interpol World, is a very good example of the multi-stakeholder cooperation, where you see law enforcement agencies, representatives of the government, you see the private companies, you see academics, international organizations who are exchanging information, exchanging the potential solutions, and contributing in each other's work. Because only by doing so, only by exchanging information, only by creating that type of useful platforms, we can find the solutions to these bigger challenges. And I would paraphrase again the Secretary General of the United Nations, who at the last opening of the last General Assembly called one of the epochal challenges alongside with the climate change, the challenge associated with disruptive technologies like blockchain, artificial intelligence, or biotechnology.
That's very interesting. Thank you so much for taking the time. Unfortunately, it's all the time we have. I want to thank you for joining us on Coffee and Conversation on BTCN. I'm Shashank Bengali. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.